Welcome to Unfiltered, real conversations with creators, tastemakers, movers, and shakers. I'm Kristen Hess of the Artful Gourmet podcast, and this is where we pull back the curtain on creativity, business, and the stories behind the people shaping culture today. So grab a coffee or pour a glass of wine, and let's sit down and talk. This is Unfiltered. Hey guys, welcome back to Unfiltered. This is where real conversations with creators, tastemakers, movers and shakers, and visionaries shaping culture through creativity. I'm your host, Kristen Hess, food stylist, photographer, creator behind the Artful Gourmet, and today's guest is someone whose work has quietly influenced the visual language of food, fashion, luxury, and pop culture for decades. Victoria Granof is a legendary food stylist, creative director, author, and visual storyteller who has worked on brands like Nespresso, Coca-Cola, Häagen-Dazs, and so many more iconic brands. She's a James Beard Award finalist, Cordon Bleu-trained chef, and was just named Cherry Bombe's 100 Most Inspiring Women in Food. But what makes her work more fascinating is that she doesn't just style food, she creates emotion, atmosphere, memory, and fantasy. And her work sits between fine art, fashion, editorial, cinema. She's built Marie Antoinette's life size out of candy. She's collaborated with Irving Penn, and she really turns, beauty and food and culture into one big experience. She's very influential. She's got an amazing career in the industry. And today we're going to talk to her about food as art, visual storytelling, her career in New York and LA, and what it really takes to become and be inspired in the industry that's constantly changing. So grab a coffee, a cocktail, something delicious, and let's get into it. This is Unfiltered. So hello, Victoria. Welcome. I'm so glad to have you here today.
Thank you. I feel like anything I say after that's going to be disappointing.
Well, I've done so much research and looked at your work and followed you forever. So trying to get all of what you've done in your career, which is an amazing journey, in 5 seconds is a challenge. So before we kind of get into, your background and what you do, how you got into what you do, I want to just ask you one question. When you look back on your creative journey, was there a moment where you realized that food could become more than cooking and that it could become visual storytelling, identity, or even art?
Yes, there were a couple of times. One, I was working as a chef in Los Angeles, and the restaurant where I was working, there was an investor, and he was recently divorced. And so they conspired to fix us up. And he was a food photographer, which I wasn't even into photography at that point. I was just into food. And I met him at his studio one day, and he was shooting a cookbook. And there was this woman there. Now, mind you, I had come from cooking in kitchens, where I could spend an entire morning fillet salmon and then, smell like salmon all day long. Glamorous, I will say.
Yeah.
And so here I walk into his studio, and there's this woman, and she's not sweating, and she's got full face makeup, and she's not running around like a crazy person or smelling like salmon. And I said, who is this woman? What's she doing? And he goes, oh, she's a food stylist. And then that was when I realized, and I hate to sound so shallow, but it was that I saw her makeup wasn't dripping down her face.
Right.
And I went, oh, this could be something.
Yeah.
So that was the shallow thing. Then when I moved to New York, I had started doing food style. I started assisting, and I did a few things on my own. I came to New York, and I was at an opening of a photographer friend's. He had some little opening, and the photo editor from Vogue at the time was there, and we met, and I wasn't too impressed by him. He was kind of a snob. And then a few months later, he called me and he said, Mr. Penn, that's Irving Penn, is looking for a collaborator. He's becoming old and blah, blah, blah. Okay. And I went in on the first day and I met him, and
Oh my gosh.
we were setting up picture of a lobster claw, and he said, and there was just a lobster claw, and I was wearing latex gloves because I was working with the lobster, And all of a sudden he said to me, I want you to grab that lobster claw. Just pick it up the way you would cooking. And anyway, he took the picture ran in Vogue, and it's the first one I did, and my hands are in it. And it was kind of a moment where I said, okay, wait, this is it. Food can be art.
Yeah.
It can be edible or not, and that was it. That was
Yeah.
really the
In fact,
step.
I've seen that. I was looking up that Vogue book.
Oh yeah,
What's it
food and Vogue.
called? Yeah,
Food
there's
and
a whole story on it, but yeah, there's a picture of that ice cream face with the hat.
Yep,
Wasn't that yours as well?
yep. Mhm.
It's
Uh-huh.
amazing. And it looks like they only have like one copy of that left, but that looks like an amazing thing. I can't even believe you worked with him. That's so cool.
Yeah, for 10
But
years.
yeah, yeah. And so, I mean, it's interesting because, you really do intersect food and fashion and art all together. And that's what's so fascinating because, me as well, I used to work in advertising and I was a graphic designer and I didn't do food right away. I
Mhm.
didn't even know how to cook. When I went to college, I made ramen noodles and,
Mhm.
you know, I had to actually learn how to cook. And it wasn't until I moved to New York City and did culinary training that I even discovered what food styling was. Kind of like you, I'm like, I don't want to be a chef in a kitchen, sweating, doing 500 covers a night, going crazy. But I love to cook and I love design and art. And, I know a big part of what you do is creative direction too. It's all about the idea and the storytelling, which I think food is storytelling. And that's, part of what food styling and photography is. So, you trained at Le Cordon Bleu. Was that over
Mhm.
in Paris or
It was in London.
Oh, okay.
Same school, just in
Mhm.
London. Only because
Yeah.
I didn't have and I still don't have a command of French, and I didn't wanna miss anything.
Yeah.
The
I hear
curriculum
ya.
was the same, the curriculum was the same, but yeah.
Yeah, and London's a fabulous city.
Mhm.
What did that experience teach you about visual discipline and storytelling?
Not much, but what d I went to FIT and got a degree in visual arts, and that's what really informs my work. It's every single day, no matter what I'm doing, I'm thinking about the principles and elements of design in general. I'm thinking
Mhm.
of, contrast and color and texture and form and
Yep.
shape and lines and directions and movement, and all of those.
Yeah.
And that is really what I refer to. And for me, a lot of times when I'm working with food, it's just like I also work with clay. I also work with textiles.
Yes.
So it's kind of just another medium with which, I can create. I hate to say art, it sounds so lofty, but, create.
Yeah, yeah, and it is. I mean, so much of what food styling is, it's sculpting and
Yes.
a design or an art piece or whatever it is that we're doing with food. And yeah, like so much of it is about color theory and composition and all that kind of stuff. And, it's funny because when I lived in New York, a lot of times people would come out of culinary school and they're like, oh, I want to be a food stylist. But, there's a lot of chefs that are amazing chefs, but I don't know if they understand the principles of design and color theory and all those things that you learned in design school. I learned in design school, so that's a really important piece, I think, for anybody that wants to get into it
Well,
is
yeah.
design,
Well,
learning those things.
it is, and well, also just a little bit of anyway, if you go to my website, I designed a course. It's called The Hungry Eye,
Mhm.
and I go through all of that. It's a very affordable course, and you go to my website and it's there,
Yeah.
but I talk about how to create a visual style, that's uniquely yours, and it's using the principles and the elements and all that. But
Yeah.
so enough of the promotion, but to the point about chefs is that when you think about it, chefs have all pretty much all of the senses to work with when
Mhm.
they're presenting their work. You can touch it, you can hear it, you can feel it, you can see it, you can smell it, all that. Whereas we have pretty much one sense. We have the sense of sight, and
Right.
we have to be able to we have to be able to make a picture into a sensory experience that makes you
Right.
imagine what it smells like, touch, feels like, sounds like, all of that.
Yes.
So we're working with a lot of other dimensions.
Yeah. And it's making a 3D image pop on a page that's 2D,
Yeah,
and you want to be able to eat it and smell it and taste it just by
yeah,
looking at it. So that's a big part of it.
absolutely.
But
It's delicious.
yeah. So a lot of your work feels very perfectly imperfect, luxurious, but human. How would you describe your visual philosophy? Because a lot of your work is like super cool and different. It's not just a plate of spaghetti that you'd see on
No,
Betty Crocker. You know what I mean? It's very
yeah, no,
graphic and artistic and a little bit like
irreverent.
rebellious, like the
Yeah,
hands and the drips and all that.
yeah, yep. I had to fight for that. I really had to fight for that because when I first started in the late 90s, food styling, everything was perfect.
Yeah.
It was absolutely perfect. Nothing out of place. It was over propped, there were all kinds of things. And I just would look at this food and feel like, well, that doesn't even look delicious to me. It
Yeah.
looks pretentious and unattainable
Fake. Yeah.
and fake, and there's a lot of work that went into that, especially on film, not digital. You had to keep
Yeah.
it looking fake while they adjusted it. Anyway, so I'd gotten this job, I'd gotten this assignment, and they didn't pay me. They didn't pay any of us. It was one of those fancy assignments, and it was for a Belgian magazine, and they gave the photographer and me 9 full pages and 9 typical Belgian foods,
Okay.
which I don't know if any come to mind, but yeah, they're not that many.
Fries.
Yeah, white asparagus was one,
Okay.
chocolate was one. Anyway, there weren't that many, but
Yeah.
mustard. Um, and they said, just do whatever you want. And so I said, well, I'll tell you what I want, what I really, really want. What I want to do is, I want to just have vestiges of the food, and I want to have the stains that the food left, and I want to have, the crumbs and all that. And so they rebelled and they said, oh, and I said, well, then I can walk away. And
Yeah.
they said, no, 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 no. Because I had already started working with Mr. Penn at the time. So they,
Yeah.
by association. And they were still, if I were to show you those pictures today, they're just as modern. And um, they were evocative. They are evocative. They're a little naughty. They
Mhm.
they hit a lot of the kind of cultural taboos around food, and that's what makes them compelling, I think. Don't know if
Yeah.
that answered your question, but um, I think what I love to do is provoke and when possible, make you think of food in a different way, make you consider it in a different way.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Which is amazing. And I'm sure you've worked with all different types of clients. Are there certain types of brands or clients that are more open to that? Or are there some that are more difficult? Like you just mentioned that you kind of have to fight for that. Or do you think that people are more open to it now versus the 90s?
oh, they're definitely more. I mean, I'm not even going to try to be modest and say that I fought for that. I fought for that. And so anybody that's doing any drips or crumbs or perfectly imperfect now, they can thank me for that. No modesty at all in saying that.
Yeah.
Because it was a fight.
Mm.
And the magazines got, a Vogue magazine, I'll never forget, they got horrible letters and accusing them of animal cruelty and all of these
Oh,
things.
jeez.
Bon Appetit, I did a cover of the ice cream starting to drip, and they said, oh, horrible food stylist, horrible. 50%. The other 50% said brilliant. And so it was a few creative directors that said, we'll go for brilliant, over what everybody else is doing. And they took a chance. But yeah, it was a fight. And I think it was worth it because now everybody can do that. And not everybody does it well either,
Right. And it's hard to make
Like a
something
mess.
perfectly imperfect, but
Yeah.
I kind of got started in like more like 2010 and up until now where blogs were starting to come out, and I think blogs definitely were like, "Oh, I'm a homemade chef and here's
Yes.
a I think that's sort of opened people's minds up now. Like, when I was working with HEB, one of the chefs is like, "Oh, I want all of our recipe photos to look like Food 52." which is a blog, you know what I mean? But
Right,
then
right,
the
right.
advertising directors were like, no, we don't want all those props. To me, it seems like it's a constant fight between the chef or the creative director or the advertising people. How do you manage that when you've got multiple opinions of where the look and feel should go? Because I mean, it's like, it's the advertising and the client's job to have a brand the way they want to do it. But then it's your
Right.
job to suggest, hey, what if we do this? Like, how do you
Exactly.
manage all that different
Well,
feedback and
y
direction?
you asked me, I don't think I actually answered the question you asked me last time about, are there some clients that do that? I'm very lucky. I'm lucky because people come to me because they want what I have.
Yeah.
They don't come to me to try to fit a square peg in a round hole. They're not trying to get me to do something that I don't do.
Right.
So I get clients, this is what I get 99% of the time. A client will come to me when the brand wants to take a walk on the wild side.
Yeah.
They want to
That's
try
cool.
something new. They want to go out on that's when they call me. Then if I've got one right now, the call right after you is a brand just like that for
Yeah.
directing a commercial. Um, but so they already know what they're getting with me.
Right.
And it's usually not a fight. What happens after that, if I establish the look and the client goes for it, I am never the one that they call me to style it going forward,
Mm.
as the stylist of record. So that part, I really don't make as much money as stylists who take up after me, after
Right.
I've got something, and then they're working, for 3 weeks straight executing what I've designed.
Right.
They will earn more money, but I think I would shoot myself in the head if I had to do the same thing over and over and over for 3
Right.
weeks straight. So
Right.
that's what I sacrifice.
Yep.
Um, and how do I manage the clients? I am lucky again because I don't have to do too much managing because they already want what I have.
That's great.
Um, but what happens is, which is happening right now, is the ad agency is the one that brings me on because they're the ones who wanted, who have the
The
overarching
vision.
vision.
Yeah.
The clients are always scared. The clients are never like, yeah, let's do something different.
Yeah.
They are always scared.
Yeah.
So, it's almost neuro-linguistic programming. It's almost mirroring. It's really techniques, how to
Yeah.
talk to a client so they're not afraid, how to, a tone of voice. I never say
Mhm.
to them, just leave it to me, just leave it to me. I know what I'm doing. I never take that tone.
Yeah.
Um, when I'm talking to a client and I sense that they're afraid to take that step, I always say, listen, I will give you the safest option, and then I'm going to take you beyond that. So, and I promise you, I won't do anything off brand. And I don't. And I keep the promise.
Yeah. And it's great that you offer them, like, okay, we'll do the safe option, which is what they usually come to you with. But then let's push it a little, and you're
Yeah.
giving them an option. If they don't like it, great. But let's try. And I think that's the difference between like working for one company, corporate, or on the client side.
Right.
You kind of have to do what they want to do. But when you're freelance, which is why I got back into freelancing, because you can work
Yeah.
with different clients. And, I think to some of my listeners that want to get into freelancing, food styling, photography, whatever, I mean, being able to have client management skills is huge,
Oh, yeah.
and that's not something you just learn overnight. And some people are artists and creative and they get too sensitive. I think that's a
Right.
whole other topic, right? I remember one time I hired my sister. We were doing a photo shoot for Arnold Bread, and I hired her to assist me as the photographer to do props and the set stuff. And I had a food stylist that I had hired. Well, the client came in, there was a new client, and she like overrode all the props that my sister had picked out because she
Ooh.
wanted to pick. And my sister, who doesn't normally do photo shoots and all that, I just wanted her to help me and learn. She got upset. And I'm like, Jen, you can't get upset. And the client just saw you getting upset. You can't do that. Like,
No.
just let them do, it's the client.
Right.
At the end
Right.
of the day, they're going to pick what they want to pick. But I think there's
Exactly.
so many nuances about, getting into the business and learning how to deal with clients that you don't learn until you're actually on set and you're doing it. And you've got so
Yeah.
much experience. And I have
I,
some experience, it's just like you don't learn that kind of stuff in
right.
school. you
No,
know?
I do have, I started last year writing a Substack newsletter, and it's called Delicious Tangents,
Yes.
but it's about that. I do talk a lot about working with clients,
Mm.
deciphering what it is that, they're really saying. This week I'm working on one where I decipher all of the abbreviations. Like a
Oh,
client said, we're going to do an RGB, and
oh,
someone said, I'm just coming back from PTO, but what about OOH and blah blah blah.
I know what you're saying. All the little letters like LMAO or
Yeah.
LOL. Yeah.
But as it
What is that
relates
word?
to food and advertising and all of that,
Yeah.
there's a lot. And if you're in a client meeting and they say, so this is an OOH or a DOOH, and you can't be stupid and go, what does that
Yeah.
mean?
Right.
So yeah, so I'm working on that. It's kind of funny too. So,
Yeah. No, I
well,
love it. I've read your newsletter. It's awesome. And not to skip ahead too far, but you're starting a podcast too. Tell us a little bit about that. That's a new project, right?
it's a new project, and I'm really very, very passionate about it. It's called Be Needy, Kneady.
Mhm.
And it's ritual and therapeutic baking, um, in community. And I've filed for nonprofit status because it's something that I'd really like to develop a curriculum and a program that can be put into like middle schools or
Oh yeah.
appeal to teens. My own son struggles with mental health, and
Hmm.
baking is so therapeutic. It really is. And it's beginning the interestingly, we have art therapy, dance therapy, movement therapy,
Yeah.
sound therapy. These are all recognized, expressive art therapies.
Yeah.
And why shouldn't culinary art therapy be one of those?
I
So I'm working
agree.
with a group uh, from different parts of the world too, to to codify that and to kind of, lobby to make that legitimate and,
That's
standards.
amazing. Yeah.
So
It
yeah,
really is therapeutic. I think about it like just cutting vegetables.
yes.
Right? You kind of just zone out. And I kind of like to even be alone when I'm cooking. I don't like a
Oh
million people
yeah.
in the kitchen. It's
Oh
kind of like,
no,
you know
it's
what? This is my
true.
therapy,
It's
right?
true.
Cooking on a Sunday, making a soup or a roast all day
Right?
and just listening to music, have a glass of wine. It's such therapeutic,
Yeah.
I
And
think.
if you ask somebody, it's funny if to your point about chopping vegetables. I do that with my son. We'll make vegetable soup,
Yeah.
and it requires him chopping vegetables. And after he'll chop something, I'll say, so what were you thinking? And he'll go, oh, nothing,
Yeah.
which is exactly the point. It calms racing thoughts and
Yes.
ruminations and anxiety. And, so just having to do that, chop vegetables is like, yeah, it's extremely anyway,
And I
so
can imagine kneading dough too is kind of this
yes, yeah,
right? Sensual, but yeah, you're not doing anything. You're just using your hands and kind of letting your
yeah,
thoughts go. I love it. I love that.
true, yeah, and we do it on the full moon. So the full moon is if you're into that, the full moon is a time to release old things
Yeah.
that end cycles. And so the act of actually kneading those intentions into the bread and then baking it, and the
That's
fire kind of burns off that old stuff.
awesome.
It's
That's awesome. So are you going to do it once a month? Like,
On
is
the
it going to
new mo
be?
on the full moon, yeah.
I
So
love
the
that.
first one we're actually doing in person, not the first one, but the next one is May 31st because it's a blue moon. We have
Oh,
2 this month, we have a blue moon, so it's 2 full moons in 1 month, very rare
oh,
and
wow.
very powerful, May 31st, yeah. So,
Okay. I know. Can you believe it's almost Memorial Day? I'm like,
no.
how is it
Nope.
already the end of May? Oh my God. And of course, I'm back up in New York. So it's kind of like upstate New York. It's kind of
Yeah,
dark and gloomy and cold
I know,
still.
it
I
just
just
hit
came
me
from Texas where
yesterday.
it's 100 degrees and hot as heck.
Right, I
Get
know.
me out of there. I got out just in time. I mean, Texas is fun, don't get me wrong. San Antonio, Austin, great. But the summers are like the surface of the
Oof,
sun. They're
oof.
horrible. And I'm a New York girl, but grew up
I
in upstate. I don't miss the snow, but I can't deal with those hot summers either.
I know, it's brutal.
Oh my God. Okay. I've got way too many questions. Let's see here.
Well, I just
Let
talk way too much, that's the problem.
I want to hear about your life-sized Marie Antoinette. that you made out of candy. And
Oh
where
my
do ideas like that come from? And how did
oh,
you do it?
oh God, that is so funny. I have to add that to my Substack.
Yes.
I don't know where it started. I really don't. But I fabricate. I love sculpting and fabricating things with food.
Yeah.
So I said I was just in Miami, and it's not edible, but we were shooting on the beach, and there was a scene where we had to have a sandcastle. And I said, "Oh, please let me build the sandcastle. I'll build a permanent one." And
Yeah.
there's a thing you can cook cornstarch and sand and blah 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 and put it in a mold
Okay.
and sculpt it and the whole thing. It looks just like a sandcastle.
Cool.
So that client, it's funny, that client, I had sculpted a 3-foot tall tower of French fries for them on a previous shoot.
I love it.
So they're like, "Oh, she's
I
the
love
one."
it.
Yeah. So I can't remember what you just asked me now.
Oh,
I
I
think
was talking about the Marie
oh,
Antoinette.
the answer to that.
Yeah.
So um that was a client who knew that I liked to make things out of food, and and it was Dylan's Candy Bar
Oh, I love them. Yeah. New York.
who the client was.
Yep.
And it was fabulous. They were doing an activation at Madame Tussauds,
Oh,
and
okay.
so the wax museum. And so
Yeah.
this was a life-size Marie Antoinette that was going to be kind of a collaboration advertising their candy in the Madame.
Yeah. That's super cool.
The only problem was they had arranged for the life-size infrastructure, the mannequin that I was going to build this thing on.
Yeah.
And I never posted that picture because the mannequin, I don't know what they were doing, but no one was looking at a picture of Marie Antoinette. It looked like Marie Antoinette, it looked like RuPaul in drag. Like this really strong jawline and
Oh,
brow bone,
no.
and I just went, "Oh my god, this is not."
Marie, yeah.
Oh, so
Drag queen. Oh my
I
God, that's
oh my god,
hilarious.
so funny. They didn't properly sculpt the underlying
Yeah, the structure underneath. Oh my,
the
did you put a
structure.
wig on it or did you make a
Oh,
wig?
the whole thing. Oh my
Oh
gosh,
my
we made
God.
this really elaborate wig, and I had an assistant who is a jewelry designer. Because most of my assistants are not food people. They're
Okay.
artists and crafters, and
Yeah.
they know food, but they're not they wouldn't know how to saute a foie gras or anything.
Right. Right.
But so we had like this coconut licorice twist thing, and she twisted it and did all of these very elaborate things out of the
Oh,
coconut, the
that's so
white licorice
cool.
to make the powdered wig, and it was
I
amazing.
would love to see a photo of that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'll send it to you. I'll find
Okay.
it. It's just a
Yeah.
snapshot. It's not and the best part was, that's the best part. We had to put it on the back of a cube truck, and the door wouldn't close on the cube truck. So the photographer held Marie in place. The stuff was flying off
Oh
the
my.
back. Oh my god,
You can
down to
imagine
the
people driving
floor.
behind the truck like, what is this person doing with a
Yes.
woman made out of, oh my God. That's
Not even a
awesome.
woman. That was pretty funny. So anyway, yes, I'll send it to you.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'd love that. That's awesome. Is there any shoot or campaign that completely changed the trajectory of your career? Like kind of a life-changing.
Well, that one that I described at the very beginning, but also not the trajectory of my career, the trajectory of food styling in general. Um, my career just kind of goes on. I'm very sensitive to changes in the industry and, just in general. And I'm not one of those people that fights change. So, we had a whole group of photographers and stylists that when digital came, they were like, "Oh, this is horrible. It's
Yeah.
terrible. It doesn't look
Yeah.
good. It doesn't this is." You know what? I used to have a little guy down the street who repaired picture tubes and TVs. Well, at some point he had to give up because there were no picture tubes and TVs anymore.
Right, right.
That's
Exactly.
really good to complain,
Yeah.
so it's really just, now I'm dealing with the difference. I do much more directing. I'm dealing with the economics of it. There's with digital media and social media, they're just a budget has to stretch so much farther because there's so many
Right.
more images that have to be made. over all these platforms.
Yes.
And, it used to be you'd have one image that would be full bleed on really good paper in a magazine that would sit there forever.
Yeah.
And that's where the budget went.
Yeah. No, you're right. And now it's like,
Oh,
they
dozens and
expect
dozens. Yep.
one image to be right, work for social, work for print, work for
Yeah.
this. And
Now
I
AI
think
is encroaching too.
I
So,
was just going to ask you about that. Like, how do you feel about the whole AI? Do you think it
well,
helps, hurts, both?
I love it in some ways. I mean, I like anything else, I love it in the ways that serve me. It sounds horrible,
Of
but for
course.
example,
Right.
I when I put together a treatment, if a client comes to me to direct something, it goes to 3 directors, candidates, and then we have to do a whole treatment, dozens of pages where we lay
Yeah.
out everything, tell, all of our whole vision and casting and the food styling and the prop style, like everything. And it
Yeah.
has to be, you as a graphic designer must know, it has to be designed, it has to be, it has to have everything. And so I typically hire somebody who is an image puller. That
Mm,
person works for an entire day pulling images that I'm going to use in the thing.
right.
Well, if I'm showing a vision of something that hasn't ever been done before, it's really hard to get those images, to find images that fit.
Right.
So I can create those on AI and create
Yeah.
exactly what I want the client to see, what my vision is. But that also puts a storyboard artist out of business. That puts the image,
Yeah.
so it's a real tough one.
Right.
It's a very tough one. I don't want to boycott it because, I mean, it sounds horrible. I don't want to boycott it because it's useful for me, but I would not pretend that something was not AI. I
Right.
would not pretend that this thing is an actual photograph. So I'm, very clear, if I use it, this is AI.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
Yeah. And I agree.
Mhm.
I think that we can live with AI for the good parts of it, but it shouldn't replace humans, I mean that's going a
But
little too far, but
it already is. I got a
I
call.
know.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to talk
Yeah. Well,
about
yeah, it's interesting because I worked on a TV shoot and the two directors, they did their whole storyboarding. I forgot the name of the program. It's an AI storyboarding where they
that. Yeah.
sketched all
Yep.
these images. I'm like, "Did you guys do all that?" And they're like, "Well, yeah, we used whatever the name of the thing was." But I was
Yeah.
like, "Wow," because they were super detailed,
I
almost
know.
comic sketches, but
Yeah.
like
You just prompt.
fabulous
Yep.
because, it really helped everybody, the client, me, everybody, the prop stylist know, here's the first scene. We're going to have the guy behind the scene. He's going to be doing this, then this. And
Yeah.
but you're right, artists used to be sketching those themselves, art directors. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think there's good and bad to AI, but we can't stop it. It's going to keep going. And I think being able to understand how it can help us and make our careers
Yeah.
easier is a good thing, but not
Yeah.
taking over our jobs, because I do photography too. And it's like, I can tell when people use AI images on their food blog. It's like, that looks shiny and weird. That's
Yeah.
not a real photo.
It
So,
doesn't.
you
Yeah.
know, I mean, I think for comping sake, yeah, like you said, you could say, like, okay, I want to have these images for my storyboard, but you're not actually publishing those as your work. It's for
No, no.
reference, so
That's right.
um, all right, let's see. Oh, so you worked in LA. Is that where you're from
Right.
originally?
Uh-huh.
Okay. And then transferred to New York. Do you see, like, what's the difference between the two markets in terms of, food styling, photography, and directing? Do you see a big
Not so much anymore. It used to be, I mean, LA there was nothing there.
mm,
I know there was the entertainment industry,
yeah.
but in terms of advertising, that was nothing. And now it's much more better represented, much more evenly represented. What's the difference? Just kind of logistically, I don't think there really is a difference. I mean, clients go there, they go here, they go there when they want, a certain it's more economics than anything really. In terms of the
Mm,
markets, I mean, honestly, I have to say there's the entertainment industry that does
right.
exist there. So you have a lot of, TV and movies and, you have a lot of that. But I mean, I think there are equal opportunities in both places. I don't think one place is better than the other. It's just, a little bit different clientele, different aesthetics, different
Yeah.
I think a career can be made in either of those places equally.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was my affinity to New York City. I always wanted to live in New York, and I did for a while, and I'm going back. But I always think of fashion, film in terms of like theater, I mean, to me, I think
Right.
it has a different vibe. I was just wondering if
It
it,
is a different vibe. Yeah.
yeah, if the clients, if there were different types of projects. I have a friend in LA. She's in Newport, and she's like, "Why don't you move to LA?" And I'm like, "There's just something about New York City. There's a
Yeah.
vibe. There's a energy that you don't get in LA." And I
That's
love the beach. And I know there's a lot of content creator jobs out there and things like
yeah.
that. But I don't know. There's still, I think of New York City as the advertising, the fashion hub, the theater hub. I don't know. It's just got a different
Yeah.
vibe. So
I
I
mean,
was
there's
just,
definitely theater and fashion here, but there's tons of independent, beachy
yeah.
fashion there too. It's a different lifestyle. You're seeing a lot of the beachy outdoor lifestyle. I mean, I told you I just got back from Miami. That
Mm,
was a client, that was a Texas client who shot in Miami because they just wanted the vibe, the visual vibe and everything.
yeah.
So sometimes it's economics. I have a client in Dallas actually, and sometimes they fly us out to shoot at their location.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they don't have the budget and we'll recreate something in New York. So just kind of logistically, I think there's equal opportunity everywhere. But in terms of vibe, yeah, of course there's a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. So, let's see. I guess if you were like starting over today from scratch, are there any things that you would do differently than when you first started back
There's
in the
no
day?
comparison at all with anything that happened in the day. Nothing at all. I mean, how did I get started? It was a fluke. I walked through a door that I recognized was open.
Hmm.
And I would do that today. I put myself in the way of a lot of opportunity and met a lot of people and was scrappy. I would do that today. I mean, one of the things that I never see anybody do anymore that I mean, I used to do, and I know other people did. I would, if I wanted to do something, if I wanted to, and I coach people too who are starting, and I mentor.
Yeah.
And when I suggest doing the following, they just gasp like, "Oh, I used to volunteer." I would
Mm.
say if I wanted to work with a client or I wanted to work on a project or I wanted to work with a photographer, I would say, "Listen, I will work for free. Do not pay me unless you think what I do is great. I won't get in your way. I'm not going to be a
Yeah.
pest. I just want the opportunity to work with you, and I will do it for free." And that got me into a few really great places and opportunities
Yeah.
in both cooking and food media. And but you have to be able to back it up and prove that you can do it. That's
Right.
the thing.
But just I think it's yeah. I mean, when I first started too, I wanted to learn studio lighting because I had learned natural light. So
Mhm.
I did the same thing. I offered to assist a photographer. I did 5 shoots with her. She was a portrait photographer. She didn't even do food, but I wanted to learn studio lighting and how she set up her lights and I did it for free. And then after that I was like, okay,
Yeah.
you want to hire me, great, but I can't do this forever, but I don't
Yeah.
know if people are willing to do that nowadays,
I
but you
don't
have to
think
be
that they
willing to learn, right? And
nah, I
get up.
don't think they are. But well, they don't have to because you could go
Yeah.
on YouTube and find out how to do it. That's
Yeah.
another thing. I think people right now, I don't know if I would do it, but I think people right now, I will have people call me or they'll reach out to assist me and I'll say, what kind of experience do you have? Oh, well, I don't really, I just love to cook. And then I
Yeah.
go, okay, well, you're not coming to me, you're not presenting yourself very well for someone who really wants to do this.
Right.
Um, and then I will get people who will say, "Do you know what? I really don't have experience, but I've been following this person and I've been doing little YouTube tutorials and I went to this workshop and I went, it shows an effort.
Right.
I think people don't show
Yes.
an effort so much anymore. They're like, I
I
just want to
agree.
get into it. Can I pick your brain? No,
Yep.
you may not pick my brain. You
Right.
may take my $49 course, but like come to me with some initiative, you
Right.
know?
Right.
I think that's lacking, and I would definitely I mean, I did it, so it's not anything I would do differently, but, I would counsel people, to do just come to it with something. If you're interested in it, you wanna get into it, educate yourself a little bit because it's
Right.
easy and free. you don't have to volunteer if you educate yourself I mean, they're just different. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I'm a
Obviously.
Gen Xer. So, I talked
Yeah.
about on my show, when I first graduated college, I mean, we, computers were starting to come out. I'm dating myself here, but my mom had a typewriter and I had designed my own letterhead and logo because I was a
Yeah.
design major. I broke out my mom's typewriter and went through the phone book
Yeah.
in New York City.
Yeah.
Where's all the ad agencies and
Yeah.
wrote letters,
Yeah.
sent
Yeah.
them my work. It's because we didn't have what we have today. But I think like what you're talking about is so important for people that want to get into any
Yeah.
business is having initiative and put yourself out there
Well,
and be willing to I worked for $6 an hour my first graphic design job.
yeah.
It didn't last long, but I did it.
Also, I think where people are craving, there's so much digital everything right now that the magic of a thank you note that you write with your
Yes.
own hand and a pen on paper and make the effort to put a stamp on is the most extraordinary thing. If I write a thank you note, I'll
Yes.
write a thank you note to a client and they go, they'll pick up the phone and call me and say, "Oh my God, I haven't received a thank you note. Snail mail is so lovely." And,
Yes.
so something like that, it's not like just DMing someone, "Hey,
Right.
thanks for the shoot. It was really great." You
Yep.
know, make a little extra effort, show that you have a little bit more than someone else, that and obviously a robust digital presence with all the platforms or choose one and do it really well. You don't
Yeah.
have to be on all of them all the time, but
Yeah.
that's so important. You can't not have a digital presence.
I agree. Yeah, and I remember when I did my master's in advertising, this was like 20 years ago, one of my friends, she wanted to be an advertising planner. So doing like creative strategy and focus groups, that kind of a job. And she stayed in Melbourne. She was working at Gray. And she's like, everything's going digital. I don't want to do digital. And I'm like, Catherine,
You
it's
have
going digital. And, I don't mean to call her out. I didn't say her last name, but to this day, she's still looking for work. She's having a hard time because she didn't jump on that train.
Yeah.
I'm like, look, I'm going into graphic design. I love to draw. I love to paint or, but I'm learning Photoshop because you got to, right? I mean, everybody's doing it and you have to
Yeah.
ride that train and stay on AI and digital and all that. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
take over
Absolutely.
your thinking process, but it's
Right. Right.
tools to help you. And if you don't learn it, you're not going to get the job. So I think
It's a
that's another,
tool for sure.
again, I have a million questions. We'll have to do another call. I'll hire you
Yeah.
to be my
Yeah,
coach,
sure. Yeah.
which I love that you do because you're such a mentor to me. Okay. So last question, and then we'll do the call outs. And I'm going to be posting you guys, everybody, website, link, Substack, all that good stuff on the actual podcast. But last question, if your life right now had a soundtrack and a meal attached to it, what would that be and why?
The soundtrack to the Sicily White Lotus, the food. Do you know, it's funny, I know what my last supper is gonna be, and it's all white, which is really, really funny for what I do. I think it's
Yeah, because you're such into color.
yeah, I am so into color, but I think that's the whole thing is that it's finally gonna be like, that's it.
A clean
Um,
canvas.
Clean
Yes.
canvas, yeah, yeah, yeah. But that would be the soundtrack, the White Lotus from the Sicily,
Was that season 1?
I think it
I'm
was
trying to
season
remember.
2.
Season 2.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, are you from Sicily? I know you did a whole cookbook on that, right?
I've done a couple of cookbooks on it.
Yeah.
Um, part of my mother's family is from Sicily, yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Awesome. Well, Victoria, thank you so much. I know I could sit and talk for hours, and
I
you're
could
such a busy
too.
woman. Thank you for taking time out to talk with me today. And yeah, like I mentioned, I will share all the links. You guys got to check out her work. She's amazing. Does the coaching, cookbooks, all the good stuff. So thank you again.
Thank
And
you, Kristen.
yeah, I look forward to when I get to New York City, we'll have to meet up for a drink and we'll
Absolutely.
chat more. Sounds good.
I'll count
Okay.
on it.
Well, thank you so much and good luck with all your new projects and your podcast. I can't wait to
Thank
hear and read
you.
more.
Thank you, Kristen. Enjoy the rest of
Okay.
your day.
Thank you. You too. We'll talk
Okay.
soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, guys. So that was Victoria Granof. Like I mentioned, I will be posting all of the links to her website, her amazing food styling cookbook. She's got coaching courses. So anybody that's really interested in food styling and photography, she's an amazing woman to not only be an inspiration, but to learn from as well. And, she's, like I said, a creative director, collaborative food stylist, a visionary director. She does all the things. So if you've enjoyed this episode, I would love if you would share it with a friend, subscribe, hit the bell, share, leave a comment, or even questions below. I'll actually be doing a poll at the end of the podcast here on Spotify that you guys can answer some questions. And I'll be posting it on my Substack, my blog, YouTube, all the things. So I'd love to continue having this conversation. If you guys have questions for me about food styling photography, how to get into it, what are some of the challenges, what are some of the good things, that's what these conversations are all about. I'd love to have people on that inspire not only me, but also my audience and anyone who's looking to get into a creative entrepreneur type position, especially in the food world. So until then, keep it groovy, stay happy, and I will talk to you guys next time. Cheers. Thank you so much for joining me on Unfiltered today, part of the Artful Gourmet podcast. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love it if you'd share it with a friend, leave a rating or review, and make sure you're following the podcast so you don't miss any upcoming episodes. Your support helps these conversations reach more listeners who are passionate about creativity, culture, and meaningful work. I'm Kristen Hess, and I'll see you next time for another great conversation right here on Unfiltered on the Artful Gourmet podcast. And remember, stay curious, stay creative, and keep living life a little unfiltered.